Moving through Alex's financial victims in order, we're now up to the case of Gloria Satterfield. Many of you recognize her as the housekeeper for the Murdaugh family. She was more than a housekeeper, especially to her sons, Brian and Tony. It's time to hear their story. On this season of The Other 55%, the trial that consumed the entire true crime community and beyond, the Alex Murdaugh trial.
And I could see his brain on
generating millions of dollars in fees. That was not enough for you.
I know you have to see Paul and Maggie during the night times when you're attempting to go to sleep. I'm sure they come and visit you.
All these people on these two exhibits, these were real people that needed this money, is that correct?
I'm sure they did.
Somebody going to check him?
Yes, sir. They've already checked them.
They did check him?
Yes, sir.
It's official that they're dead?
Yes, sir. That's what it looks like.
Oh, and it might not have been you. It might have been the monster you become.
Welcome to The Other 55% with Cassidy O'Connell, because we don't know the half of it, and this time we probably never will. It's episode 5 of Murdaugh Money, The Victims, Gloria Satterfield. On February the 2nd, 2018, Gloria Satterfield was reported to have fallen on the front steps of the now famous Moselle property owned by the Murdaughs. I'm about to play the 911 phone call Maggie made at that time, but before I do, I want you to imagine a housekeeper you've employed for over 20 years. This woman has raised your 2 boys. She's a single mom, a widow, and you know her 2 boys, one of whom has special needs, and she's worked hard for you in order to raise them as best as she can on her own. You've told her she's like family. This woman has fallen on your steps and is bleeding from her head and from her ear. She's trying to speak, but it's just mumbles. She's trying to get up, but she keeps falling. How are you feeling, and what are you doing in this moment? Would you be kneeling by her side, trying to stop the bleeding, moving her to a more comfortable place, keeping her from getting up and risking yet another fall? Let's listen to how the phone call actually went.
911, where's your emergency?
4147 Moselle Road.
Okay, can you give me the address one more time, make sure I got it right?
Yes, 4147 Moselle Road.
Okay, what's going on out there?
I'm sorry?
What's going on out there?
My housekeeper has fallen and her head is bleeding. I cannot get her up.
Okay, you said she's fallen. She's bleeding from the head?
Yes.
Okay. How old is she?
I'm not sure, like 58 maybe.
Do you know if she fell from standing or not?
No.
Where'd she fall from?
She fell going up the steps, up the brick steps.
Okay, so she outside or inside?
Outside.
Okay. How many steps is there?
8.
Okay, is she on the ground or is she up near the top?
She's on the ground. She's on the ground. Is
she conscious?
No, not really.
Is she awake at all?
Yes.
Okay. Is she just not, like, responding appropriately, but she is awake?
Man, she's not responding.
Okay, I've already got them on the way. Me asking questions does not slow them down, man. Knowing if she's conscious is one of the things that the medic needs to know if she's responding at all to you.
No.
Okay, so she's not responsive at all.
Well, I mean, she's mumbling.
Okay, so she is somewhat conscious. Is she breathing okay?
Yes.
Is she bleeding from anywhere?
Yes, her head.
Okay, are you guys able to control the bleeding?
No.
Can you put a clean rag or anything on it?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, is she bleeding from, like, her face, the back of the head?
I've got an ambulance coming. Sir, my name what?
Where exactly is she bleeding from on her head?
I'm not sure, at the top of her head.
Okay.
What's it?
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
What happened?
She just fell back down. Can I get off this phone so I can go down there?
Can I have your name and phone number? Or are you able to bring the phone down by her?
What?
Are you on a cell phone where you can walk down there
I'm
and
on
talk?
a cell phone. No.
Okay, can you bring it with you so we can ask her some questions about what kind of pain she's having?
Hello?
Yeah, can you ask the patient what kind of pain she's having?
Ma'am, she can't talk.
Okay, do you know...
She's cracked her head and there's blood on the concrete and she's bleeding out of her left ear.
Okay, she's bleeding out of her ear?
And out of her head. She's cracked her skull.
Okay. All right, the other lady said that she had tried to stand up and fell down again?
No, I was holding her up. And
Okay.
she told me to turn her loose and she was trying to use her arm, but then she fell back over.
Okay, do you guys know who she is?
Yeah, she works for us.
Okay, do you know if she's ever had a stroke or anything before?
Ma'am, can you stop asking her this
I
question?
already have them on the way. Me asking questions does not slow them down in any way. These are relevant questions that I have to ask for the ambulance. One of my questions is, has she ever had a stroke?
I don't believe she's ever had a stroke now that I know
Okay. Okay, is she able to talk to you guys at all, or is she unconscious now?
She's not unconscious. She's just mumbling.
Okay.
I believe she's maybe hit her head and maybe has a concussion or something.
Okay.
Maybe.
Do you know what her name is?
Gloria Satterfield.
You said Sanderfield?
Ma'am?
You said Sanderfield?
Satterfield.
Satterfield. Okay, what's the house look like out there?
It's offset off the road.
Okay.
It's a big house, got a long driveway.
With a long driveway?
Yeah.
Is there a gate or anything down there that they're going to need to come through?
There's two big brick columns that have to come through.
Okay, but there's no, like, gate code or anything that they need?
No, ma'am. And tell them that they can look for a fellow on a 6x6 Ranger.
Okay.
Waiting on them in the road is green. You know what they probably know what the Ranger looks like.
Yeah. You said, like,
Fella's
green.
got on a black sweater,
Okay.
a hat, and pants.
Okay. All right. If something changes with her, if she loses consciousness or anything like that, I need one of you guys to call me back right away, okay?
Okay, well, how long is it going to take? Because this took us
That I don't know. I've had them on the way since Maggie first called me. They were toned right away.
Okay.
All right, but I think they're coming. Hang on 1 minute. Let me check. They're coming from somewhere on Bells Highway in Ruffin, okay? That's where their station is.
Thank you.
All right, but like I said, if something changes, call me back.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I think Gloria deserved better than this in her time of need. Maggie didn't even know how old Gloria was. She and Paul were both so bothered by the whole thing. While Maggie was calling 911, you could hear Paul talking on the phone too. Who was taking care of Gloria? How different would the scene have looked if it were the other way around? If Maggie or Paul had fallen and Gloria was the one attending them? I venture to say it would have been a very different scene. Gloria came from a large religious family. Her family was so large, in fact, that when she was growing up, they filled nearly 2 pews in their church. They were a loving family. She's remembered by those who knew her as a kind, gracious woman who spoke in soft tones and expressed care and concern for everyone. A woman known for her hugs. As a widow, she worked hard to support her 2 boys alone, but still had love and care for Buster and Paul. It's said she was especially close to Paul, and that Paul had a pet name for her and even carried her picture in his wallet, thinking of her as a second mom. It's been reported that Gloria had a car accident the day before her fall, and that she'd come to the Murdaugh home to pick up a check. The rest of the statements about what happened don't seem to add up to anything that makes sense. Maggie said that she and Paul were sleeping and were awakened by the fall. They said Gloria couldn't speak, that she was just mumbling. You heard them say that in the 911 call. But what does Alex say?
My name is Bryant McGowan. I'm in Moselle, South Carolina. Today is Thursday, March 29th. Time's approximately 11:15 a.m. I'm meeting with Alexander Murdaugh. Mr. Murdaugh, you understand I'm recording this statement?
Yes, sir.
And I'm doing so with your permission?
Yes, sir.
Can I have your full name, please?
Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
And Do you go by Alexander?
I go by Alec.
You and I have been meeting to talk about an occurrence that happened here at the property involving a Gloria Satterfield back on February 2nd of this year, which was a Friday. And you recall the incident I'm referring to?
Yes, sir.
All right. I wanted to ask you some questions about. Why don't you just go ahead and start off by filling me in as to how your day unfolded that day?
I went to work that morning, and I received a phone call from my wife that Gloria was injured, seriously injured, and asking me if I could come home. I immediately left. Upon arriving, found Gloria, my wife, my son Paul, and my employee Ronnie Freeman on the, we call it a patio for lack of a better term, landing area at the bottom of the steps. Gloria was there, sitting up. Big pool of blood, a lot of blood on the side of her face, and shortly after I arrived here, EMS arrived and tended to her.
When you left for work that morning, you didn't know that Gloria was going to be coming to work. I mean, coming for any purpose to the house.
I didn't know that day.
Right.
My wife knew she was coming.
Okay. And when you talked with your wife, you understood that she was coming for what reason?
Gloria was coming to be paid. My mom inadvertently left town without paying Gloria for work and had asked Maggie to pay her on her behalf. And so Gloria was coming here to get paid.
Okay. And were you able to speak with Gloria before she was taken away in the ambulance?
I was.
Okay. Did you ask her what happened?
Sure, I asked her what happened. I mean, the first thing I was making sure that Gloria, I was trying to assess her mental capability at the time. Did she know where she was? Did she know what was going on? That type of thing. And, asking her if she knew me. Did she know Maggie? Did she know Paul? Did she know Ronnie? Did she know where she was? So
how was she responding to this?
She knew those things. She knew where she was. She knew who I was. I mean, she obviously was not functioning at full capacity, but she did. She knew those things.
Okay. And then the ambulance removed her, and did you follow the ambulance after that?
I did.
Okay.
I followed the ambulance to Colleton Hospital.
And when you were talking with Gloria before she was taken away, did she describe the chain of events in any way to you? Obviously, she was out of it.
She indicated that the dogs had caused her to fall.
Okay. And she was at the base of the front steps.
She was.
When you arrived.
My understanding was she was sitting on the base of the steps when I arrived. Now, my understanding from my wife, when she found her, she was unconscious, and her head was on the landing area, and her feet were up the steps.
So she was upside down.
Well,
almost.
I think she was laying on her back or on her side, but her feet were up on like the second step, and her head was on the ground. So she was literally on the steps with her head down on the brick landing area.
Okay.
Gloria's siblings say that she was never able to talk with them to tell them what happened in the accident, yet Alex claims she told them the dogs made her fall. Witnesses and first responders say Alex wasn't even there before they took her away in an ambulance. So this has led many to wonder if it was a cover-up, and maybe someone harmed Gloria, intentionally or otherwise. There are so many unanswered questions, like, for example, the dogs weren't allowed in the home, so if Maggie and Paul were sleeping, how were the dogs out and able to jump on Gloria? Everyone who knew their routines knows that the dogs spent the nights in the kennels. Listen to the differing opinions of investigator Stephen Peterson and Eric Bland.
Still with me, investigation consultant and former DEA agent Steve Peterson. I want to go to you first, please, to share with us the information that you learned.
Caretaker of the property, he was very close with Paul. So I tracked him down and I interviewed him at his home, and all about Stephen. I was there to talk about Stephen Smith and about maybe Paul's relationship with Stephen. Specifically, if this guy had ever overheard any talk from Paul or his friends about Stephen. He mentions, well, it's kind of like the Satterfield thing. And I said, excuse me? And he goes, yeah, the Satterfield. Gloria, I was there the day Gloria died. And I put my stuff down and I said, okay, let's back up. Let's talk about this for a minute. So he says, I was there. I was over by the kennels. Gloria arrived. I saw her drive up on the property. We waved. She went to the house. A few minutes later, I get this frantic call from Maggie. Gloria's fallen. She's hurt. Please come to the house right away. He rushes over to the house. He sees Gloria on the ground, on the stairs. I think Paul is talking to 911. Maggie's there. They try to render some aid to Gloria. Gloria is totally incoherent. She's not speaking. They're there for a while. EMS arrives. EMS removes Gloria, takes her to the hospital. So I said, well, wait a minute. When did Alex arrive? He goes, what are you talking about? Alex was never there. I said, Alex wasn't there at the time of the fall or before EMS arrived? He said, no, Alex was never there. Alex left earlier to go to work that morning. He didn't arrive back at the house till long after EMS was gone. And in a deposition Alex gave to the insurance company, he claims he was there, and she, Gloria, told Alex that the cause of the fall were the family dogs. She tripped over the dogs. That's not the case at all. Alex Murdaugh created that narrative, in my opinion, to deflect suspicion off of his son, Paul.
Eric Bland, your reaction to this. Why do you think Alex Murdaugh would lie about being there and lie about talking to Gloria Satterfield about what really happened?
Definitely concur with Steve that Alex used this as an opportunity to enrich himself. He saw it like every other client matter, a scheme that he would defraud them and steal. I do not believe Paul Murdaugh, under any circumstances, would ever kill Gloria Satterfield, under any circumstances. He loved her. He carried a photo of her in her wallet. He had a pet name for her. And the reason I say that, Steve, is because I don't believe if somebody was trying to kill another person, they would let that person get in an ambulance in a semi-conscious state with the possibility that they would go to the hospital, get medical treatment, and wake up. And that Gloria immediately would say, no, I wasn't pushed by the dogs. I was pushed by human hands. So the family and I don't believe that she was intentionally killed. I think her death, which was clearly accidental in our eyes and unfortunate, was used as a means, though, to enrich Alex.
I agree with Eric that had someone been responsible for her injuries, as in they'd pushed her or hit her, they might not have gotten her help out of fear that she would get better and be able to tell the truth. But as far as Alex blaming the dogs, it could have been as simple as greedy Alex realizing from the earliest moment that this could be a large insurance claim if it could go down to something he would be held liable for, as in his dogs caused the accident. And therefore, he wanted that down on record for a bigger settlement that he was already planning, whether she lived or died. We'll probably never get those answers, since the only 3 people that were actually there at the time of the accident are all dead. At Gloria's funeral, Alex takes Gloria's sons aside and reassures them that he will look after them. He tells them he has a great insurance policy, and he will arrange to sue himself and his insurance on Gloria's behalf, and they will be set. He tells them he knows just the lawyer to help them to do it, but he fails to tell them that this lawyer is his good buddy, college roommate, longtime bestie, and Paul's godfather, Corey Fleming. Remember him? Yes, he's the same guy from episode 2 that helped Alex steal money from Hakeem Pinckney's mother after Hakeem's death. He's back again for more. Although the lawsuit is officially filed by Corey, Alex, one of the defendants along with his insurance, files paperwork on several occasions on Tony and Brian's behalf. He also sets himself up as the contact person that Tony and Brian communicate with, instead of Corey. This is a huge conflict of interest, and is not supposed to be allowed. Tony Satterfield testifies to this during the murder trial.
Who was your mother?
Gloria Satterfield.
Gloria Satterfield?
Yes.
And is Gloria still with us?
She's not.
And when did she pass?
February 26th. 2018.
2018?
Yes, sir.
And who did she work for when she passed?
Alex and Maggie Murdaugh.
Did you trust Mr. Murdaugh?
Yes.
What happened to your mom?
She fell and hit her head.
And where was she when that happened?
She was at Alex's house in Moselle.
In Moselle?
Yes.
Did she pass right away, or did she live for a while?
She lived for a few weeks.
Was she ever able to say to you what happened, how she fell or anything?
No, she was not.
After she passed, did you have any conversation with Alec about what to do about it?
I did.
And what was the conversation you had with Alec? What did he say? Go ahead.
I barely remember, but it's like, let me go after my insurance company for this or whatever, kind of get these medical bills and stuff paid.
Okay. So he said he was going to go after his insurance company?
Yes.
And get medical bills for your mom paid?
Yes.
Did he say he might get any money for you and your brother?
Yes.
Did he say how much that might be?
No.
Ultimately, was there a lawsuit filed?
Yes.
All right. And who did you consider your lawyer was in all of this?
Alex.
At some point in time, did he bring another lawyer in?
Yes.
And what did he tell you about that?
He said, if I understood it correctly, I can't do it myself because it's conflict of interest. I'm going to send you to my buddy, Corey Fleming.
Corey Fleming?
Yes.
Did he tell you anything about his relationship with Corey Fleming other than they were buddies?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Did he tell you anything more about his relationship with Corey Fleming?
No.
After he brought in Corey Fleming, were you still communicating directly with Alec about the case?
Yes.
Who did you think your lawyer was?
Alex.
The whole time?
Yes.
Did he ever bring in a person, or did they ever bring in a person by the name of Chad?
Yes.
And you remember Chad's last name?
Westendorf.
Okay. And what did they tell you about Chad?
That he should be my PR.
Your PR?
Yes.
Did you ever meet with Chad?
Yes.
Did you meet with him a lot, or just?
One time I can think of.
Not only had their mother worked for Alex for over 2 decades, Alex had helped them out legally a few times. For example, Brian had signed over power of attorney to Alex to help him with his grandmother's estate. Alex had also assisted him after an accident had left him with injuries, and Alex had assisted Tony with his deceased father's estate. Plain and simple, Gloria's sons trusted Alex. As time passes, Tony checks in with Alex multiple times because he and his brother need the money. Brian, who in spite of having special needs, works hard as his mother taught him to do, but ends up having his home taken from him because he can't keep up the payments. Meanwhile, Alex steals their first settlement of over $500,000 and later their multi-million-dollar settlement. He couldn't even spare them a small amount that could have saved Brian's home and made their lives a little easier. No, Alex had to have every dime. Originally, Tony was appointed Gloria's personal representative on March 28, 2018. If you don't remember, when someone dies intestate, a personal representative must be appointed to manage their estate. It's usually next of kin, so naturally it falls to Tony. Again, ignoring conflict of interest, Alex was the one who filed that paperwork. On May 24, 2018, in a letter drafted by Alex's firm, not Corey's. Now remember, Corey is Tony's attorney, and they're suing Alex, who is therefore the target defendant. But here Alex is asking for Gloria's medical records, claiming to represent Tony. Corey had already filed on March 8, 2018, to put Alex on notice that he would be suing Alex on behalf of Tony, and therefore, as a defendant, it is highly inappropriate for Alex to be filing paperwork for Tony or claiming to represent him. Basically, Alex is claiming to be both plaintiff and defendant. Alex never explained the concept of conflict of interest to the Satterfields, and as the indictment states, Murdaugh undertook his representation despite the presence of an irreconcilable conflict of interest, which would have made his involvement completely impermissible in accordance with the South Carolina Rules of Professional Conduct. Minimally, Murdaugh was ethically required to disclose the conflict in writing to Tony and Brian, although this conflict was so profound that it would not have been possible to obtain Tony and Brian's informed consent and waivers of the conflicts, even with full disclosure. In October 2018, as the settlement got closer, Alex and Corey decide it no longer fits with their plans to have Tony as Gloria's personal representative. They convince Tony and Brian that their needs would be better served by someone who understands business. Though technically, it should have passed to another member of the family, they convince them to select Chad Westendorf, the vice president of guess where? That's right, folks, Palmetto State Bank. So on October 31st, 2018, Brian signs a renunciation of right to administration and/or nomination and/or waiver of bond. Where? At Alex's office. The same document is signed by Tony on November 16th, 2018. They've now signed away their rights to have any say in decisions or to receive any information on their own mother's estate in favor of Chad Westendorf. Why was this done at this time? The first settlement check would be arriving soon, and Chad's appointment would not immediately kick in with the signing of the papers. It would require an actual court hearing for his appointment to take effect. So, time was of the essence. Before it could happen, the initial settlement check of $505,000 was written on December 4th, 2018, and delivered to Corey's office on December 6th, 2018. Although it's state law that wrongful death and survival claims must be approved by court order, Tony, who was still the legally appointed personal representative since Chad's appointment had not yet been made in court, was not asked to attend a court hearing for this settlement, nor was he even notified that this check existed. Instead, Alex and Corey intentionally concealed it until Chad could be appointed in court as Gloria's new personal representative. Though Chad was appointed because he, quote, understood business and was better equipped to serve them, unquote, once appointed, he never communicated with Tony or Brian, never opened an estate bank account, never obtained an FEIN number for the estate, never communicated in writing with the Hampton County Probate Court, and never provided periodic inventories or status reports to the Hampton County Probate Court, nor advised it of any settlements of wrongful death or survival. Let's listen to some clips from his deposition with attorney Eric Bland. And remember that the reason Alex and Corey gave for changing from Tony to Chad were because Chad had a better understanding of business. Let's see if that's so.
How many times did you meet with Tony Satterfield or Brian Harriet?
I did.
How many times did you ever speak to Tony or Brian?
I did.
How many documents did you send to Tony and Brian in connection with the work that you did as personal representative of the estate of Gloria Satterfield?
None.
Did you speak with any of the family members of Gloria Satterfield during your representation of the estate as the PR?
No, sir.
What did you do to educate yourself or avail yourself of what your responsibilities and duties were?
I spoke to Corey Fleming, the attorney for the estate, when I met with him.
Okay.
Asked him what I needed to do as the personal representative.
Did he give you any written documents or a list of items that you were supposed to do?
No, sir.
Did you do any independent research on your own and look up under South Carolina law what a PR is supposed to do on behalf of an estate?
No, sir.
All right. Did you talk with Alex Murdaugh at all about what your duties would be as personal representative?
I had questions when he asked me if I would serve.
Okay. Did the request come from Corey or from Alex for you to serve?
Alex.
Okay. Did you understand that as a personal representative that you were a fiduciary? Do you understand the term fiduciary?
I did not.
Okay. Do you understand it now?
Not really.
Okay. That you owe duties not only to the estate, who you were a personal representative for, right?
Yes, sir.
But did you realize that you were an officer of the court? Did you realize that?
I did not.
Okay. And who were the creditors? Do you remember?
I don't know.
Do you think it was your job to find out who the creditors of the estate were if you were going to be the PR?
Again, I asked the attorney what I needed to do.
Okay. What was your job as PR? Tell me what you were supposed to do.
I don't know.
And you understand the difference between a claim and litigation?
No.
Okay. What made you more qualified to be PR than Tony?
I don't know.
Did you ever ask why Tony shouldn't continue to serve?
No, sir.
Did you know that Tony was the PR and that you were replacing him?
I saw in my document from the probate that I was successor PR.
Okay. Tell me why you never even marshaled the $50,000 and paid that into the probate court.
I asked Corey what I needed to do, and he said he would handle it. I know I'm saying that. And he was going to pay some medical bills. This was at our first meeting.
But I'm talking about after the settlements came in, you know, after the first settlement conference on December 19th.
He said he was going to handle it.
Okay. So Is it fair to say that your answer or defense for what you did or didn't do was based on the reliance of your counsel?
Yes, sir.
So it was Corey Fleming who told you what to do and not to do, or you expected that Corey Fleming would tell you what to do or not to do?
I was expecting that, yes, sir.
Okay. Did that strike you as curious that the target defendant was having discussions with you instead of the plaintiff?
Not really.
All right. Why didn't you find that strange? Did you think that everybody had a unity of interest?
No, but I thought he was helping the kids out. That's what he claimed to be doing. He was helping the boys.
Doing what? How to help them?
Getting them money.
To do what?
Because they lost their mother.
Okay, and was it also to pay medical bills too?
He didn't say that.
Okay. The concept of a defendant, you know the difference between a plaintiff. The concept of a defendant helping out the plaintiffs is not a usual concept that we see as lawyers. You would agree?
I would agree,
okay.
Yeah.
He called you on the phone?
Yes, sir.
And he had your number?
Yes, sir.
Well, did he have your number because you guys were friends or because you were a banker?
I would say it would be more friends because I didn't bank him.
Okay. So how did you know him?
Grew up around him and just been in the town.
Would you call him a friend?
Yeah.
So the two settlement hearings that you attended on December 19th, 2018, and then May 13th, 2019, it was just you, Corey, and Alex, and then Judge Mullen.
And her clerk was at the first one, and then the second was just Judge Mullen, myself, and Corey Fleming.
So the only difference was there was a clerk at the first one.
And Alec. Alec wasn't at the second one.
Alec was not at the
No, sir.
So at the second one, who was there?
Corey Fleming, me, and Judge Mullen.
Okay. This is the creditor's claim that was filed by a law firm for one of the medical providers, and this was the hospital, and it was for $655,539.60. Okay. Do you realize that as a PR for the estate, if there's creditors that have filed claims against the estate, you have an obligation to deal with those creditors on behalf of the estate?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so a creditor filed a claim for $655,000, and then throughout the course of your becoming a PR, you learned that $50,000 would go to the survival of Gloria for her death, right? And then the rest went for wrongful death. Do you know the difference?
I do now, yes,
Okay.
sir.
You didn't know the difference?
I did not.
Did Corey ever explain that to you, what the difference was?
No, sir.
That the wrongful death travels outside of the estate, and survival has to be an estate asset, the survival monies. Do you know that now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know how it was determined that $50,000 would only be allocated for survival?
I don't.
Gloria lived 3 weeks, right?
Okay.
She died February 26th after the fall. So, and $4.3 million was recovered, which, did you ever educate yourself on whether that was a good settlement or not a good settlement?
No, sir.
Do you realize that you actually had to approve that settlement?
Yes, sir.
So when somebody came to you and said, look, we've settled for $505,000, did you say, why are we settling for that amount, or what's the status? Is there any more insurance money? Did you ask those kind of questions?
It was told in the meeting with Judge Mullen on the 19th that there was another claim out, and we might have some mediation on that. So
okay.
The first one was for $500 that we were in.
All right. And so when you go to the mediation and it settles for $3.8 million at the mediation.
Yes, sir.
What did you do to satisfy yourself that that was a good settlement, or whether you should have gotten more on behalf of the estate?
I thought it was a good settlement, but no, I did not educate myself. Corey called me a couple days after mediation and said that they're willing to settle for the 3.8. Our use of, is that good with you?
You realize you're the client?
Sir?
You realize you were the client?
I did not.
Did you never realize that you were Corey's client?
I thought we were working together.
Okay. Whether Alec was your friend, you accepted to become PR where he was the, quote, target defendant, right?
Yes, sir.
And it would require you, am I correct, to put aside your friendship and do what was in the best interest of the estate which you represented. That would be your single-minded focus, right?
Yes, sir.
Couldn't do what was best for Corey, right?
Yes.
Couldn't do what's best for Chad.
Correct.
Couldn't do what's best for Alec. Had to be for the estate and the estate only.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you got paid $10,000 on the first settlement as the PR fee, and then you got paid $20,000 on the second settlement. How was that determined?
I have no idea.
Did you negotiate that with Corey and Alec?
No, sir.
Did they call you on the phone and say, what would you want?
No, sir.
Did you understand what it was for?
Yes, sir.
What was it for?
I was told it was from a PR fee.
Okay. Well, what did you do for that fee?
Went to meetings with the judge and
Two hearings.
and then was on a mediation call.
That would be it?
That would be it.
Okay.
I guess. I don't know.
I'm not trying to trick you. I'm just...
No, I mean, I don't. I don't know what those were. I didn't ask. I trusted Corey was
Well, when you
what was
see
right.
something that says $11,500,
Yes.
and then I'm going to show you the second disbursement sheet says $105,000 even.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't your antenna go up and say, how does expenses come out on the perfect zero? Not, you know, 500, not 105,037 cents.
I wasn't aware. I mean, it's not something I'd ever looked at before, and I had no previous experience with it.
But you got common sense.
Yes.
Okay. And common sense would tell you this claim was not in litigation, right?
Yes.
You never were asked to attend depositions.
No, sir.
Okay. And the only thing that took place were a couple demand letters and then a mediation. Obviously, you had to pay the mediator. That was John Austin in Charleston, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if you have a mediator cost and you have a couple stamps and maybe a filing fee for the probate court for you to become PR, did you ever ask yourself, what could comprise $10,500 and then another $105,000 of expenses? How is it that a lawyer or a law firm put that down in front of a judge and said to the court, we have $105,000 of expenses in a settlement where there was no litigation? No deposition transcripts. You know, Cindy does this today. This will cost $800,000. None of that. No expert witnesses. Nothing. Today, can you tell me what that expenses?
I cannot.
You permitted that money to be taken from your client, the estate. You signed a document, and we'll show you, where you admitted that those were proper expenses, and that money came from my client's recovery for their mother's death. And nobody ever explained that to you, what those expenses were?
No, sir.
And it never, dawned on you to say, how's that possible, that amount of money for expenses?
No, sir.
Do you remember at the settlement conferences with Judge Mullen, somebody would have to make a representation as to what the disbursements would be? Who did that?
Corey.
And the December 19th hearing, and we'll go in detail, he would have said, I have $10,500 of expenses?
I don't remember.
Do you remember May 13th, he would have said, Judge Mullen, I have $105,000 of expenses?
I don't remember if he said that exactly. No.
Do you remember Judge Mullen saying, how's that possible? How are these numbers possible?
No, sir.
Do you remember Judge Mullen saying, where's your fee agreement, Mr. Fleming? How are you entitled to 33 1/3%?
No, sir.
Did she ever say to you, Mr. Fleming, how are you entitled to $30,000 as a PR fee when the statute says your money comes from a percentage of the survival settlement?
Never was mentioned.
So the survival settlement was $50,000. 5% of that is $2,500. Did you ever ask Corey Fleming, how is it that I'm getting $30,000 when the statute says I'm only supposed to get $2,500?
No, sir.
Did Judge Mullen ever ask, how is it that you're getting $30,000? Do you have a fee agreement with Mr. Westendorf? Did she ever ask that?
No, sir.
Okay.
This man knew nothing about this role, did nothing to learn about this role, basically did nothing in this role, but received tens of thousands of dollars to stand by and let Alex and Corey rob the men he was supposed to be protecting. How about not accepting a role you don't understand and therefore are not qualified to take on? Or how about at least taking the time to Google it? I mean, Google found 128 million sites in 0.42 seconds. The information is available. This guy's whole deposition sounded like this. More importantly, a lot of very suspicious information was revealed in this deposition. It's starting to really make me wonder how deep and how widespread this corruption goes, and how many more people are involved besides Alex. On December 18th, Chad was appointed by the court, and the very next day, he petitioned the court to approve of the now 14-day-old check. Looking at this petition, we see the stamp along the right side in blue, showing that this petition was filed, the date it was filed, in which court, and the case number. It's state law in South Carolina that wrongful death and survival settlements be made a part of the public record. So after a judge had signed off, either in court or in chambers with a court reporter, the attorneys file these. The order approving the settlement should also be signed and filed with the case number. In an email from Chad to Corey on January 14th, notice at the bottom, Chad asked for some documents signed by a judge, and the reply the next day at the top has an attachment. We don't know if the petition is what Chad was looking for, but there is no order approving the settlement that has been signed by a judge or stamped or filed in court. Even stranger is the fact that no clerk or court reporter were present for the second meeting in chambers to properly record the events. It's also mind-boggling that a judge would see these badly prepared, mislabeled documents, suspicious amounts of fees, and not question anything. Doesn't she see actual cases all day, every day, to understand how off this all is? As a side point, if the name Judge Carmen Muller sounds familiar, it's because she was the judge in the Donna Badger case who approved the appointment of Russell Lafitte in favor of Arthur Badger, the husband. She also accepted a fraudulent document Russell and Alex had made, stating that Arthur, a grieving widower raising 6 kids alone, did not want his wife's settlement money. If you haven't watched that episode yet, please do. It's episode 3 in the series, and one of the saddest victims, in my opinion. There is an order that's prepared for Judge Mullen's signature, stating that it was coming before the court on December 19, 2018. But if one was ever signed, it was never filed in court, nor is there a record of it appearing in any court docket. In this unsigned petition and order, the settlement was divided as $475,000 for wrongful death. This portion is supposed to be paid immediately to the beneficiaries for the grief, sorrow, and loss. It allows $5,000 for medical fees, which is very odd because her medical bills were hundreds of thousands of dollars. Then a mere $25,000 for survival action, which gets held back and must go through probate before it can be distributed. Survival action is for the time Gloria lived between the accident and her passing. It's for her pain and suffering, and thus is part of her actual estate. It's also supposed to cover any medical bills accrued during this survival time. Gloria's medical bills were well over $600,000. How were $5,000 or $25,000 supposed to cover that? But Alex and Corey need as much money as possible that's easy to access. So without thought of paying her bills, they put the majority into the wrongful death portion, where it's immediately available. Corey Fleming sends Alex a check made out to his Forge account in the amount of $403,500. That check was just the first settlement. Another, much larger check from an umbrella policy at Nautilus Insurance Company was also negotiated in March. This settlement is much larger, coming in at $3,800,000, bringing the total to $4,300,000. There is still so much more to discuss about this second settlement. This will all be in part 2 of Gloria Satterfield, which is coming very soon. Until then, stay well and stay tuned.